What if I told you that some people in ancient Rome became richer than many modern billionaires? Not emperors, not kings, not conquerors. Ordinary merchants. Men who started with almost nothing and built fortunes so massive that politicians feared them. Cities depended on them, and entire fleets sailed under their command. The strange part? They had no banks, no stock market, no internet, and no modern technology. Yet somehow, they discovered a system that created extraordinary wealth. A system so powerful that parts of it are still making people rich today. So how did ancient Rome create millionaires? To find the answer, we need to travel back nearly 2,000 years to the heart of the Roman Empire. Rome was unlike anything the world had ever seen. More than a city, it was the center of a giant economic machine stretching across 3 continents. Every day, thousands of merchants flooded its streets. Ships arrived from distant lands carrying cargo worth fortunes. Gold changed hands constantly. Deals were made in crowded marketplaces. Opportunities were everywhere. For ambitious people, Rome wasn't just a place to live, it was a place to get rich. Among the crowds was a young merchant named Marcus. If you saw him walking through the city, you probably wouldn't look twice. He wasn't famous, he wasn't powerful, he wasn't born into wealth. His father owned a small shop and earned just enough to support the family. Marcus grew up watching wealthy Romans pass by in luxurious clothing, while his family struggled to save a few coins. Most people accepted their position in life. Marcus didn't. As a teenager, he spent hours wandering through the city's marketplaces. While other boys dreamed of becoming soldiers, Marcus watched merchants. He noticed something interesting. The people carrying goods weren't becoming rich. The people selling goods weren't becoming rich either. The people becoming rich were the ones controlling the movement of goods. They connected places where products were cheap with places where products were expensive. That difference created profit, and profit created wealth. At first, it seemed almost too simple. Buy low, sell high. But there was a problem. Trade was dangerous. The Mediterranean Sea was filled with storms capable of destroying ships without warning. Pirates attacked merchant vessels and stole entire fortunes. A single mistake could wipe out years of savings. Most people looked at those risks and stayed away. Marcus looked at the same risks and saw opportunity. Years later, after saving every coin he could, Marcus finally had enough money to invest in a small shipment of olive oil. It wasn't much. In fact, compared to the fortunes of wealthy Romans, it was tiny. But to Marcus, it represented everything he owned. If the shipment failed, he would lose nearly everything. Friends warned him not to do it. Family members told him to be careful. Some thought he was crazy, but Marcus understood something most people didn't. Wealth rarely comes from comfort. It comes from taking calculated risks that others are too afraid to take. So he invested. The cargo was loaded onto a ship and sent across the Mediterranean. Then Marcus waited. Days passed, then weeks. Every morning he woke up wondering whether his future was floating safely across the sea or resting at the bottom of it. Finally, news arrived. The shipment had survived. Not only that, demand for olive oil had increased dramatically at its destination. The cargo sold for far more than expected. When Marcus counted his profits, he couldn't believe it. He had earned more money from one successful trade than many Romans earned in an entire year of hard work. That moment changed everything. Most people would have celebrated and spent the money. Marcus did the opposite. He reinvested every coin. The next shipment was larger, then another, then another. Each successful trade increased his wealth. Each new route expanded his reach. Before long, Marcus wasn't managing one shipment. He was managing dozens. His goods traveled across the empire. Wine from one region, grain from another, luxury products from distant lands. Everywhere there was demand, Marcus saw an opportunity, and Rome created countless opportunities. The empire's massive size was one of the greatest wealth-building advantages in history. Millions of people needed food, clothing, tools, and luxury goods. Armies needed supplies. Cities needed resources. Wealthy citizens constantly demanded exotic products from distant regions. This endless demand created a giant economic network where merchants could generate enormous profits. Think about it for a moment. If you controlled a trade route connecting 2 major cities, you weren't just moving products. You were controlling the flow of wealth itself. That's exactly what many Roman merchants learned. The smartest traders didn't focus on working harder. They focused on controlling valuable assets, ships, warehouses, trade routes, businesses. The more assets they controlled, the more wealth flowed toward them. Marcus understood this better than anyone. As his fortune grew, he began purchasing ships instead of renting them. Owning ships meant keeping more profit. More profit meant faster growth. Faster growth meant even more opportunities. It became a cycle that multiplied his wealth year after year. Soon, Marcus employed sailors, traders, accountants, and managers. His business expanded far beyond anything he imagined as a child. What started as a single investment became a trading empire. But here's the fascinating part. Marcus wasn't unique. Across Rome, thousands of ambitious merchants were building fortunes using the same principles. Some became so wealthy that they could influence politics. Others financed major construction projects. A few accumulated fortunes so large that historians still talk about them today. One Roman named Marcus Licinius Crassus became one of the richest individuals in history. His wealth was so enormous that even powerful leaders sought his support. He owned property, businesses, mines, and investments throughout the empire. If adjusted for modern times, his fortune would likely place him among the richest people on earth. So what was the secret behind Rome's millionaires? It wasn't luck, it wasn't magic, and it wasn't inheritance. The secret was understanding how wealth moves. While most people focused on earning money, Rome's wealthiest citizens focused on controlling assets, trade, and opportunities. They understood that true wealth wasn't created by trading time for money. It was created by owning the things that generated money. And that's why ancient Rome produced some of the richest individuals the world had ever seen. 2,000 years later, the tools have changed. The technology has changed. The world has changed. But the principle remains exactly the same. The people who understand how wealth moves are often the people who accumulate the most of it. And that's the timeless lesson hidden behind the rise of Rome's millionaires.